Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Is that a cop dead? It's a cop down. Dude, that's a cop down. Right down. It's a dude? No, it's a sniper from up here somewhere. It's a sniper? You hear the shot? Get down. Get down. Get down.
It was an unfathomable tragedy in a week of profound heartbreak and loss. The words of America's Attorney General Loretta Lynch, who says the shootings of the past week must not be allowed to become a kind of new normal. Here's what we know about what happened during a street protest against police violence that triggered its own brutality. Hundreds of demonstrators gathered at the Belleau Garden Park around 7 p.m. for a peaceful march through the city. But just before 9 o'clock, gunshots are fired at the junction of Main and Lamar Street. Terrified protesters run for cover. Police close off the area around a multi-storey car park close to El Centro College and engage in a 3-hour armed standoff with a sniper on the second floor. Around 4 a.m, reports emerge that the gunman is dead and 3 people have been arrested. 5 police officers were killed and 7 more shot and injured. And so it was that an evening that started in solidarity tipped over into a night of violent tragedy. And a warning, my piece contains some shocking images that you may find distressing. For hours, they'd walked peacefully through the city streets when, in a moment, everything turned to chaos. The sound of gunfire rang out, aimed with ruthless accuracy at the police stationed along the route. 5 officers would die, ambushed from on high, slaughtered on the street, with several more injured, as well as at least 1 protester.
It had to be like 5 or 6 cops, like they was all getting shot down, man. It was right after the rally, like we were just walking to the car, and then all the cops.
How many?
Like, I saw about 3. I saw 3. Like while we was running, like they just kept shooting them. It's coming. We don't know where it's coming from.
He just killed a law!
Across Dallas, eyewitnesses captured the dramatic scenes, uploading their images to social media.
They're moving in on somebody.
Most barely able to comprehend the deadliest attack on law enforcement since 9/11.
Dude, that's a cop down. Yeah. There's 4 cops down. 4? Yeah, he shot 7 times. It's a dude? No, it's a sniper from up here somewhere. It's a sniper? You hear the shot? Get down. Get down. Get down.
As well as sniper fire, at least 1 officer died when he was killed with exacting violence. The gunman stepping around a pillar to shoot him at close range. It was an horrific coda to days of hot talk around police brutality after officers in Louisiana and Minnesota killed 2 black men in separate incidents filmed and posted online.
We're hurting. Our profession is hurting. There are no words to describe the atrocity that occurred to our city. All I know is that this must stop, this divisiveness between our police and our citizens.
At an emotional press conference, the city's police chief told of 3 suspects in custody. A 4th killed by a police bomb carried by a robot after he was cornered and negotiations, according to the chief, broke down.
The suspect said he was upset about Black Lives Matter. He said he was upset about the recent police shootings. The suspect said he was upset at white people. The suspect stated he wanted to kill white people, especially white officers.
The man has now been named as Micah Xavier Johnson, 25, from Mesquite, just outside Dallas. He'd been a member of the US Army Reserve and served in Afghanistan. During the standoff, he told police that he was not affiliated to any groups and that he'd acted alone. 43-year-old Brent Thompson was the first dead officer to be named. He was married just 2 weeks ago and had trained police in Afghanistan and Iraq. Speaking from a NATO summit in Poland, US President Barack Obama paid tribute to America's men and women in blue.
Our police have an extraordinarily difficult job, and the vast majority of them do their job in outstanding fashion. Today is a wrenching reminder of the sacrifices that they make for us. We also know that when people are armed with powerful weapons, unfortunately it makes attacks like these more deadly and more tragic. And in the days ahead, we're going to have to consider those realities as well.
But by the day, making peace in this divided nation feels ever more urgent and ever more fraught. I'm joined now by 3 guests who were all at that rally last night, the Black Lives Matter rally here in Dallas, when things turned terribly violent and were caught up in the middle of it. So this is Noel Hendricks and Nick Amarillo, and Richard Borders, who's also a hip-hop artist known as Ricochet. Richard, we'll come back to you in a moment. But first of all, Noel, tell me where you were when you realized that something terrible had happened at the protest.
We were actually right there in the same garage. We were right outside walking up to the old red courthouse.
So this is the garage where we know the shooter was finally holed up. There were
Right.
negotiations, they failed, and he was killed.
Correct.
So what were you hearing at that time?
A lot of gunshots. A lot of gunshots.
Did you know what it was straight away?
Yes. The first 4 or 5 gunshots, Nick and I both.
We were on the street.
We were on the street.
So you knew you had to take cover.
Yes.
Did the police tell you to do that, or did you do it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And what did you see when you were inside?
Well, we knew to hide at first, and then when we saw a window, we kind of went for it, and then we saw bullets ricocheting off the top of the police cars. I'm sorry, and then and death.
We saw a policeman shot.
4 policemen saw them. At one point, we saw one policeman trying to get his partner and pull him to safety, and there was no movement from the other, and then he got shot. So it was pretty bad.
Richard, I can see you filming over there. You were filming last night as well. What did you see?
I was 50 feet away. I saw the shooter, shoot the police officer. I kind of got stranded, because my car got hit by a car was in front of me, backed into the car. And he turned right, and then I didn't want to move because the shooter was actively shooting.
So could you see the shooter himself? Could you see his face?
I didn't really see his face because the way the lights across from El Centro College, which was the school that I used to go to for a couple of semesters, he was behind the pillar. So, it was kind of hard to catch his face, but I heard him scream, F the police, F the police, and then he just started letting off a bunch of rounds, and then the police officer crossed the street. And when the police officer crossed the street, he was trying to hide behind the pillar. When he was trying to hide behind the pillar, the shooter came around the other side of the pillar, and that's when he shot the police officer. Then he walked up on him and shot him probably about 8-9 times, point blank.
We've seen your very shocking footage of that. And indeed, it was the shocking video footage of the killings of black men in Minnesota and also in Louisiana that led to the protest last night. Now, I met you this morning, Noel, and you were tying blue ribbons around a lamppost. You protested last night against police brutality, but this morning you were sending a different message.
Our march, the way that we were coming at it is for justice, for peace, because that's what we want. So the blue ribbons are to support families and our laws. Everything.
So you don't see it as a zero-sum game. It's not about protesting black violence. You have no issues with protesting black violence, but also demanding that police be able to conduct their jobs safely.
There was not supposed to be violence yesterday at all whatsoever. It was a peaceful march, and that's what was supposed to happen. You get bad seeds out of every bunch, and unfortunately that's what happened, and it wasn't supposed to be that way.
You're saying definitely you're agreeing there,
Yeah,
Richard?
definitely. You know, the protest was very peaceful. I was shocked, you know, because I was on my way home, and my dog had got dehydrated, you know what I'm saying? And that's why I left a little bit earlier. When I was driving, I saw people running. So I was like, okay, well, maybe the police, you know, sprayed tear gas or whatever. I had no idea that it was an active shooter until I was like right there. It's like almost like a tornado, and you get caught right up in it, and you're right there, and it's too late. You know, I didn't want to drive through it. I didn't want to do none of that because he was shooting everywhere.
Where does the Black Lives Matter movement, obviously that you were all involved in with the protest last night, where does that go from here? How possible is it to recover from what happened? Are the two directly related?
Well, you know, this is the biggest, it's crazy because I feel like I covered one of the biggest stories since the JFK assassination, you know what I'm saying?
Well, it was just a few blocks away, wasn't it?
Just a few blocks away. I mean, it's gonna take some time. You know, this is like one of the biggest tragedies, you know what I'm saying, in Dallas, you know, so, yeah.
Okay, Richard, thank you so much for joining us. Richard, Nick, Noel, thank you very much. That's all from Dallas for now, but we'll be back later on. For now, back to the studio in London.
Well, back now to our main news. And so once again, race and racism is back at the top of the list of America's problems. Philando Castile and Alton Sterling, whose deaths led to the Dallas protests yesterday, were just 2 of 136 black people killed by police in America this year. Gun control has been raised as an issue by Barack Obama again today. Our international editor, Lindsay Hilson, looks at the background to today's shootings, which have again divided America, and her report contains images some people might find upsetting.
Assist officer, shots fired. Code 3, stay off the radio, officer down.
We got a guy with a long rifle, we don't know where the hell he's at. Parker garage. Building! Black guy, slow down! He's in the damn building right there! I don't know where he's at, he's in that building right here, he's across from that building! 69, we have got to get DFD down here now, he is one sick right now, 169, get him here!
They're on the way.
Be over here. Go around that corner.
The Dallas police force are always alert in a city where racial tension has been high for years. But this level of violence against them was unprecedented.
Stay with me.
It was this video that sparked protest across America yesterday.
I told him not to reach for it. I told him to get his hand out.
Diamond Reynolds live streamed the scene after her boyfriend, Philando Castile, was shot dead by police who had pulled him over for a broken tail light in St. Paul, Minnesota. 2 days earlier, Alton Sterling was killed by police in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
The man that just got killed in Baton Rouge. And then hours later, they're calling me and I'm seeing my brother on Facebook. Just laying there and the officers, and I don't hear him calling for an ambulance. He's just still sitting there with his gun pointed at my brother while he's gasping for air, while he's just bleeding. Why weren't you applying a pressure to the wounds? Why weren't you calling for an ambulance? Like, I don't understand. I don't understand.
Today, the U.S. Attorney General spoke for many.
After the events of this week, Americans across our country are feeling a sense of helplessness, of uncertainty, and of fear. And these feelings are understandable and they are justified. But the answer must not be violence. The answer is never violence.
We can see your racist side, Donald Trump!
Even Donald Trump was so shocked by the sequence of events, he said the nation was too divided and called for love and compassion. He and Hillary Clinton cancelled engagements today. Shocked members of the Black Caucus in the U.S. Congress called once again for gun control.
If this Congress does not have the guts to lead, then we are responsible for all the bloodshed on the streets of America, whether it be at the hands of people wearing a uniform or whether it's at the hands of criminals. We bear that responsibility if we don't act.
Give it to him, bro.
Last night, Mark Hughes was arrested as a suspect and later released. Carrying an assault weapon as he did is legal in Texas. You don't even need a license. The issue is race.
It's perfectly legal.
A gun club named after the late Black Panther leader Huey P. Newton has recently paraded in Dallas. There's no evidence they're connected to the shooting. They say they need to defend themselves against white gun owners and the police. It was in Dallas a year ago that police, responding to a call from a neighbor, arrested black teenagers at a pool party, infamously restraining a 15-year-old girl in a bikini. Now a squad car has become a memorial for the 5 slain police officers. They're victims, just like the dozens of black men killed by police. But there is no guarantee this will unite a fractured city and nation.
Well, I'm joined now by the president of the US Police Foundation, Jim Bierman, who happened to be in Britain for work, and from Washington, D.C. by Professor Michael Eric Dyson of Georgetown University, an author and commentator on race relations. Professor, how do you see what happened last night? What was it?
Well, what we saw was a lamentable, tragic act of a gunman who aimed his anger at vulnerable police. And, you know, we think that that is dispiriting and despicable. We think it is equally dispiriting and despicable for African American citizens who are going about their way in a lawly fashion to be subject to the capricious and arbitrary force of violence and show by police as well. So we have to balance out an appreciation for the extraordinary work that most of our police people do to keep us safe, but we must also act in concert against those police forces and peoples who would undermine and subvert the practice of law and represent not the best of our society, but its worst.
Jim Bierman, how do you think your colleagues in police forces across America are going to react to what's happened?
Well, they're going to be heartbroken, first of all, and they're also going to be very concerned that maybe this could be repeated someplace else. But very soon, this dust will settle. We will get to a place where we're going to get back to the discussion that we should be having in this country about race relations, race in policing, race in crime control, and how everybody gets rightful policing in their community.
But are they going to be angry? Are some of them going to be out for revenge?
The police
That's
officers,
the fear, isn't it?
Well, sure. I mean, they're going to feel like they've been attacked, and that's understandable because they were. But I think most police officers will get, and this is the obligation of police chiefs across the United States, that they need to message to their officers that the overwhelming majority of people that they run into mean them no harm. They are not trying to hurt them. They want respectful, constitutionally correct policing in all of their communities.
Professor Dyson, you've written a very powerful piece in the New York Times. I commend it to anyone who wants to read it, but there's one very striking phrase you use, which is whiteness is blindness. It is the wish not to see what it will not know. Can you explain that line?
Well, what I'm suggesting there is that many people ignore the symptoms of a tremendous hostility that is being directed arbitrarily toward African American, Latino, and other poor people. The reality is in America, we want, as our other guest is suggesting, for all people to be protected, police people to be protected, to do their jobs, and American citizens to be protected as those police do their jobs. We want the police force to be directed to defend us, not to defame us or not undermine us. And we want to respect the authority of those police departments when they are enacted with a recognition of our humanity. So for me, I think that when we talk about the blindness that is available to so many of us, or that spreads to so many of us, we don't see what we don't want to know. And a disproportionate number of people who continue to be victimized by certain police practices that are rogue or problematic happen to be people of color and poorer people. And all we're asking is that police work be done with an acknowledgement that it is extremely difficult, that we appreciate the work that is being done, but that black people and brown people must not be arbitrarily chosen and subject to forms of, I think, brutality that are not directed toward other people. For instance, we see recently circulated a camera capturing a man fighting with 2 policemen, a white man. He's swinging at them. He's doing all kinds of things to them. He is threatening them, but they do not pull out their guns, thankfully, to shoot him and to otherwise contain him. But African American people who present no threat other than their skin or the suggestion that they are more likely to do crime, seem to present and provoke a level of animus and hostility that I think has to be addressed. We want good policing. We want to protect our police people as they do so. We also want to protect citizens who are there in the society to be protected by those police as well.
Jim Bierman, where do you see this going? I mean, you were here last night on the program talking about this, but this is a step change. This is a moment, isn't it?
Well, it may be. I think in this tragedy and all of these tragedies that we've been talking about, there is opportunity, though, to do what the professor was just talking about. We have got to find a way for police officers who are, in their hearts, they believe they are doing the right thing, but what they're doing is being perceived by the communities they're paid to protect in an entirely different way, and there is a disconnect.
Do you understand some of those people who are, well, not celebrating, but they are not condemning what has happened?
Well, I think people that feel that they've been on the receiving end of oppression by the police probably are going to be less sympathetic about this. But I'm not willing to accept by any stretch of the imagination that people that are advocates for good policing are also advocating somebody should kill the police. I'm not going there at all. I don't believe that's the case. Everybody deserves in the United States rightful, constitutionally correct policing, and nobody wants to see police officers murdered.
Professor, where do you see this going? I mean, we're seeing some resurgence amongst, more extreme black political groups, people talking about open carrying again. Do you see this escalating now?
Well, open carrying is the rule of the law for certain municipalities. People who have the right. The young man who was murdered in his car by the police person was indicating that I have a gun and, it's a lawfully, received gun, and yet he was still killed by the police. What we have to get to the bottom of is the sense of fear around the bodies and the experiences of black people and people of color. And we've got to reduce the level of animus and hostility between police departments and citizens, even as they do their jobs. We want police people to do their jobs. We simply want them to take care of the real criminals and not to criminalize African American and Latino people who, by virtue of their skin or their circumstance or their neighborhood, may be seen to be more threatening or lethal than others. Now, to be sure, we want to contain whatever threat is available that presents itself in terms of real crime. But we don't want to criminalize African American and Latino people as well. So we have to have a balance that is healthy in our society.
Michael Eric Dyson, Jim Bierman, thank you both very much indeed.
Well, Chris, as we've heard, of course, there was a peaceful march before the violence broke out last night. 1,000 people marching through the streets of Dallas for a Black Lives Matter march remembering the 2 black men who'd been killed by police officers in the past few days in America. Dr. Jeff Hood, Reverend Jeff Hood, organised that march. Reverend Hood, we've heard from other eyewitnesses, suddenly, the march was winding down, wasn't it, when suddenly this happened?
Certainly, there's no question that the chants were dying down. Everybody was ready to go home. And I had just passed this intersection behind us, right back there. And that's when the shots rang out. And, it's been devastating.
Waking up to this news today, realising that it wasn't a nightmare, it actually happened. These dead police officers. How does the community recover? How do you offer counsel? How does the movement continue?
Well, we have to focus our sights on love and justice. Love and justice are the only way. If we choose violence, we're not going to get love and justice. We have to focus on love and justice.
There's a lot of anger out there, though,
Sure.
too. I mean, certainly even from, moderates within the Black Lives Matter movement, they say, well, look, while they don't condone the violence, there is a sense that this is a pushback, that this has been coming. Do you agree with that view?
I believe we have to channel our anger into love. We live in a society that is, injustices are happening every day. I mean, there's.
But when you've seen Baltimore and you've seen all the other instances, you've seen New York, you've seen Ferguson, and there haven't been indictments and there haven't been police charged over these events, perhaps then it's more possible to understand where they're coming from.
It's not a matter. Certainly, it's not a matter of, for me, of understanding. It's a matter of what is effective. We want a real revolution in this society. We want a revolution of love. We want people, our police forces, to start treating people like human beings. We want to be able to live in our societies peacefully, and the only way that's going to happen with effect is through love.
what about mental health issues? We know this man was a serviceman. He'd served in Afghanistan, the shooter. Is this a mad coalition of race, of guns, even of mental health in America?
I think you're seeing everything. I mean, you know, here in Texas, everybody wants to talk about guns. Everybody wants guns, and when more people have guns, this is what happens.
I mean, you had open carry members in your protest yesterday.
I have never, you know, been very welcoming of open carry protesters at any protest because it's too much opportunity for a disaster to take place.
Reverend Hood, thank you very much for joining us. Well, we'll be back tomorrow at 5:30, but for now, from the team here in Dallas and from Krishnan, that's Channel 4 News. Good evening.